The toxicity report was absolute. The Queen's nectar dissolves biological tissue upon contact. It is the galaxy's most forbidden test of death, reserved only for the damned. But when Commander Jack Riker downed the glowing violet vial, he didn't scream in agony, he smiled. Suddenly, the pheromone sensors on the royal ship shattered. He didn't melt, he evolved. 50 High Queens of the Tribunal watched in stunned silence as his stamina spiked to impossible levels. What happens when a death sentence becomes the ultimate stimulant? You are about to find out. Hit that like button and subscribe right now if you believe humanity is built differently, and comment Survivor below to let us know you're ready. Now, let's witness the trial. The Apex Tribunal Station hung in the black void like a jeweled spiderweb. It was the political heart of the galaxy, a place where colossal decisions were made by the 50 High Queens of the royal court. Humanity was new here, unproven, and barely tolerated. They were seen as soft, squishy things from a low-gravity dirtball, unfit for the brutal realities of interstellar politics. Commander Jack Riker stood in the center of the Grand Chamber. He was a man built like a reinforced bulkhead, an American military lifer who preferred a straightforward fight to this diplomatic theater. He wore standard-issue fatigues that looked painfully plain against the shimmering, chitinous armor of the royal guards surrounding him. He wasn't here to negotiate. He was here to survive a judgment. Humanity needed vital shipping lanes opened, and the court demanded a champion prove they were worthy of the responsibility. The trial is simple, human, High Queen Venara hissed from her elevated throne. Her voice sounded like grinding glass. She was a towering figure, armored in natural iridescent plates. We demand satisfaction. Our protocols require a demonstration of supreme fortitude. If you fail to satisfy our standards of endurance, Earth remain isolated. If you die, well, that is also an answer. Riker adjusted his collar. Define satisfaction, Your Highness, because where I'm from, that word has a few different meanings. Venara clicked her mandibles in amusement. It means you must endure what we cannot. You must process the unprocessed. You must stand when biology dictates you should fall. We will test you until we are bored or until you are broken. A servant drone scuttled forward, holding an ornate tray. On it sat a single, thumb-sized vial made of polished obsidian. Inside, a thick, violet liquid pulsed with faint inner light. The Queen's nectar, Venara announced, her voice echoing through the vast chamber. A sacred isotope compound. To 50% of known species, it is instant neurodeath. To the other 50%, it is a corrosive agent that liquefies internal organs in seconds. It is forbidden to all but those sentenced to the ultimate test. The entire court leaned forward, thousands of alien eyes fixed on the lone human. This was the execution phase. They expected him to refuse, or to drink it and dissolve into a screaming puddle on their polished floor. Riker picked up the vial. It felt cold. He looked at the swirling purple liquid. His tactical ocular implant scanned it, flashing red warnings. Unknown toxin. High concentration of alkaloids. Do not ingest. He ignored the warnings. He knew the game. They wanted proof that humans were just another fragile species needing their protection. Bottoms up, ladies, Riker muttered. He tipped the vial back and downed the nectar in one swallow. It was thick, syrupy, and tasted like chewing on a battery wrapped in chili peppers. The court held its breath. Venara leaned forward, her compound eyes glittering, waiting for the inevitable cellular collapse. Riker blinked. He coughed once, clearing his throat. A tense warmth bloomed in his stomach, spreading rapidly to his chest, then his limbs. It wasn't pain. It was fire. Pure, unadulterated energy slammed into his nervous system. His heart rate jumped from a resting 60 to a thudding 120 in a second. His vision sharpened to a razor's edge. The sluggish feeling of the station's slightly higher gravity vanished instantly. He rolled his shoulders, feeling the muscles snap tight with kinetic potential. He looked up at the High Queen, his eyes bright, almost glowing. "Little tart," Riker said, his voice a low rumble. "You got anything to wash that down with? Maybe some coffee?" The silence in the grand chamber was deafening. Vinara's mandibles hung open slightly. The biological scanners on her throne were screaming impossible data. The human wasn't dissolving. He was accelerating. "Impossible," Vinara whispered. "Prepare the arena. If the poison won't kill it, the trials will." Riker cracked his knuckles, the sound like pistol shots in the quiet hall. The nectar was coursing through him now, a roaring river of chemical energy looking for an outlet. He felt like he could punch a hole through the station's hull. "All right," Riker smiled, a predatory grin that unsettled the guards. "I'm awake now. Let's get this show on the road." The arena was a massive circular pit beneath the Queen's viewing platforms. The floor was hard, abrasive metal compound, designed to tear flesh and dull claws. Riker was dropped into the center, the residual taste of the violet nectar still burning pleasantly on his tongue. His body felt electric. Every nerve ending was firing on overdrive. Up above, the 50 High Queens settled into their viewing pods. They were the jury, and they demanded to be impressed. They were used to seeing the galaxy's toughest species break within minutes in this pit. The first trial of satisfaction, Vinara's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. Kinetic endurance. 2 massive hangar doors slid open on opposite sides of the arena. Out charged 2 beasts that looked like a cross between a gorilla and a heavily armored tank. They were growl behemoths, creatures known for smashing through concrete bunkers. They roared, a sound that shook the dust off the arena floor. Riker didn't flinch. The nectar seemed to have override his fear response entirely. He processed their movement speed, armor thickness, and likely attack patterns in microseconds. 2-on-1? Riker yelled up at the pods. "That seems fair, for them." The behemoths charged. The ground shook with their weight. The first one swung a massive, stone-like fist aimed at Riker's head. A normal human would have been turned into paste. Even Riker on a good day would have barely dodged it. But today wasn't a good day. It was a nectar day. He moved faster than he ever had in his life. He didn't just dodge, he weaved inside the creature's guard with blinding speed. The time dilation effect of the stimulant made the massive beast look slow. Riker planted his feet and threw a right hook into the creature's softer underbelly. The impact sounded like a thunderclap. The sheer kinetic force behind the punch, amplified by Riker's hysterical strength, lifted the 2-ton beast off its feet. It crashed backward, gasping for air. The queens above chattered excitedly. Their bioscanners were showing the human's muscle output was exceeding known biological limits for a biped of his size. The second behemoth didn't wait. It lowered its armored head and tried to ram him. Riker sidestepped like a matador, grabbing a protruding horn as it rushed past. Using the creature's own momentum, he swung himself up onto its back. It bucked violently, trying to dislodge the pest. Riker held on with a grip that could crush steel piping. He felt no fatigue. His muscles weren't burning with lactic acid. They were humming with power. "Is this it?" Riker bellowed, riding the thrashing monster like a mechanical bull. "I'm barely warmed up." He drove an elbow into the junction between the beast's neck plates. The creature screamed and collapsed, paralyzed. Riker hopped off, dusting his hands. He looked up at the queens. He wasn't breathing hard. He wasn't sweating. He felt like he could run a marathon and then fight a war. "Next," he shouted. Vinara looked at her console. The data made no sense. The human's internal temperature was rising. His blood pressure was lethal for most species. yet his performance was increasing. "He is burning through energy reserves at an unsustainable rate," one of the other queens observed. "He will crash soon. The biology cannot sustain this." "Increase the parameters," Venara ordered coldly. "Move to environmental stress." The arena floor hissed. Vents opened up, blasting superheated steam into the pit. The temperature rocketed from a comfortable 70 degrees to a scorching 140. Most species would go into immediate heat stroke. Their proteins would denature, their brains would cook. Riker just felt the heat hit his skin. It was uncomfortable, sure, like a really intense Arizona summer day while wearing full gear. But his body, supercharged by the nectar, immediately compensated. He started sweating profusely. The aliens watched in horror as water poured out of the human skin. "He is leaking fluid," a queen gasped. "His internal systems are failing." They didn't understand evaporative cooling. They didn't understand that a human is an endurance predator built to shed heat while keeping moving. The nectar had just kicked that evolutionary advantage into overdrive. Riker wiped sweat from his brow, grinning up at them through the shimmering heat haze. He started doing jumping jacks in the center of the sauna-like arena. "A little dry heat?" Riker laughed, his voice echoing strangely in the dense air. "My grandmother does yoga in hotter rooms than this. You ladies need to turn up the dial if you want to see me sweat for real." He was taunting the most powerful beings in the galaxy, fueled by an alien poison that was acting like supreme rocket fuel. But how long could his heart sustain this pace before it exploded inside his chest? The human was mocking the court. This required a severe correction. "Activate the gravity plates," she commanded. "Increase to 3 times Earth standard." Riker was mid-jumping jack when the gravity hit. It felt like an invisible truck had been dropped on his shoulders. His knees buckled slightly. The sweat on his skin felt heavy. 3 Gs, enough to make moving feel like wading through wet cement. Enough to snap the bones of lesser species just by standing up. Riker grunted, forcing his legs to straighten. His thigh muscles bunched like steel cables beneath his uniform. The nectar burned hotter in his veins, demanding he fight the pressure. He stood tall, glaring defiantly at the queens, holding 3 times his own body weight just by existing. "Is that all you got?" he growled through gritted teeth. Venara signaled her guards. "Release the hunter-killer drones. Let's see how long he satisfies us when he has to fight while crushed by gravity." A dozen sleek metallic drones dropped from the ceiling, their weapon emitters glowing red. Riker took a fighting stance, the weight of the world on his shoulders, ready for round 2. The nectar whispered in his blood. Move, fight, survive. If you're enjoying this absolute unit of a human defying alien physics, smash that like button right now. Do you think the nectar is going to help him win, or is his heart about to give out? Let me know in the comments. The hunter-killer drones were fast, buzzing around the arena like angry hornets. In 3G gravity, they had a massive advantage over a biological target. They fired localized plasma bolts, not enough to kill instantly, but enough to burn and incapacitate. Riker moved. It wasn't graceful. Under triple gravity, every step was a massive exertion of force. He looked like a juggernaut, plowing through deep mud. A plasma bolt sizzled past his ear. Another grazed his shoulder, singing the fabric of his uniform and blistering the skin beneath. The pain was distant, muted by the chemical firestorm in his blood. The nectar acted as a potent pain blocker, flooding his system with endorphins that turned agony into dull background noise. He lunged at the nearest drone. His movement was deceptively fast because of the sheer power he was putting into the ground. He caught the metal drone mid-air, his grip crushing its casing. He didn't just disable it. He used it as a club to swat another drone out of the sky in a shower of sparks. Up above, the royal court was losing its composure. His skeletal structure should have collapsed, a queen noticed, her antennae twitching nervously. How are his joints sustaining that load and that impact force? His bone density is anomalous, Vinara observed, her fascination beginning to outweigh her arrogance. And this nectar, it seems to be acting as a hyperstimulant rather than a toxin. It's unlocking biological reserves they shouldn't have access to. Riker was a whirlwind of violence in the center of the pit. He was sweating buckets, his face red with exertion, veins bulging on his neck and arms. He tore through the drones, smashing them against the arena walls, ripping their power cores out with bare hands. He was satisfied only when the last piece of alien tech lay sparking on the ground. He stood amidst the wreckage, chest heaving. The triple gravity was taking its toll, nectar or not. His heart felt like a jackhammer against his ribs. "Are you not entertained?" Riker yelled, channeling an ancient Earth warrior. "Are you satisfied yet?" Vinara looked down at the defiant human. He was impressive, yes, but the court required absolute certainty. They needed to know his breaking point. "He still stands," Vinara declared to the court. "Introduce the neurofeedback loop." The arena lights shifted to a sickening, pulsing violet color. A low-frequency hum began to vibrate through the floor, a sound designed to disrupt the synaptic pathways of sentient brains. It caused intense vertigo, nausea, and hallucinations in 90% of known species. Riker staggered. The world tilted on its axis. He felt an intense wave of nausea roll through his gut, threatening to bring up the nectar. His vision blurred, double images of the arena walls swimming before him. He dropped to one knee, shaking his head, trying to clear the fog. The queens watched intently. This was usually where the strongest warriors broke mentally, clawing at their own heads to stop the noise. Riker squeezed his eyes shut. He focused inward. He focused on the burn of the nectar, the raw, angry energy it provided. He was American military. He'd gone through SCRE school. He'd endured sleep deprivation, psychological stress tests, and endless drills. This was just another noise he had to tune out. He forced himself to stand. He swayed like a drunk man on a ship in a storm, but he stood. "Get out of my head," Riker growled, slamming his fist against the side of his own skull to center himself. He opened his eyes. They were bloodshot, but focused. He glared up at the observation deck with such intensity that a few of the younger queens actually flinched back. "You can try to crush my body. You can try to scramble my brain," Riker shouted, his voice rough. "But I am still here, and I'm not done delivering satisfaction." Vinara was silent for a long moment. The human was defying every model of biological capability they had. He had consumed a lethal toxin and treated it like fuel. He had withstood crushing gravity and psychological warfare. "Very well," Vinara said, her tone shifting from imperious to something approaching respect, mixed with a healthy dose of fear. "Let us see the limits of this endurance. Bring out the champion." The massive gate at the far end of the arena began to rumble open slowly. A deep, guttural roar echoed from the darkness beyond, a sound infinitely more terrifying than the growl behemoths. The air in the arena grew cold, despite the heat. Riker wiped blood from his nose, a side effect of the gravity and the neuropressure. He squared his shoulders toward the dark gate. The nectar was still pumping, urging him to fight, but he could feel the edges of his energy starting to fray. He was burning too hot, too fast. Whatever was coming out of that gate was the final test. The queens didn't just want him to survive it. They wanted him to satisfy their need for a spectacle. Riker spat a glob of blood onto the arena floor. "All right, big boy," he muttered to the darkness. "Come get some." The creature that emerged from the gate was a nightmare made flesh. It was a Xylosian war hulk, a quadrupedal engine of destruction covered in chitinous black armor plates that could deflect light anti-tank weaponry. It stood 15 feet tall at the shoulder, with razor-sharp claws and a maw full of teeth designed to shear through metal. It was the tribunal's ultimate executioner. No one had ever lasted more than 3 minutes against it. The Warhulk stalked into the arena, its 6 red eyes locking on to the small, soft-looking human in the center. It let out a shrieking roar that vibrated in Riker's chest cavity. The gravity was still at triple strength. The neurofeedback hum was still pulsing in his skull. The heat was still blasting. And now this. Okay, Riker breathed, feeling the Nectar's energy spiking again in response to the mortal threat. Now it's a party. The Warhulk charged. It moved with terrifying speed for its size, closing the distance in 2 massive bounds. It swiped with a claw big enough to decapitate Riker instantly. Riker didn't have time to think. He let the Nectar-fueled instincts take over. He dropped to the floor, sliding under the massive swipe, the wind of it ruffling his hair. He rolled to his feet behind the beast. The queens above leaned forward, their wings and mandibles twitching with anticipation. They had never seen anything dodge a Warhulk's opening strike. Riker knew he couldn't hurt this thing with punches and kicks. Its armor was too thick. He needed a strategy, and he needed it fast, because his heart felt like it was about to vibrate through his ribs. The stimulant was pushing him past the red line. The Hulk spun around, surprisingly agile. It lunged, snapping its massive jaws. Riker grabbed a discarded metal support beam from the destroyed drones lying on the floor. He jammed the metal bar vertically into the creature's open mouth, just as it clamped down. The Hulk roared in frustration, unable to close its jaws fully. It thrashed its head, flinging Riker across the arena. He hit the wall hard. Even with the Nectar's pain-dulling effects, he felt something crack in his ribs. He slid down the wall, gasping for air in the thick, hot atmosphere. The Hulk crunched down, bending the metal bar until it snapped, spitting the pieces out. It turned its enraged gaze back to the human. Riker forced himself up. His vision was swimming. The neuro-hum was getting louder. He was running on fumes, sustained only by the alien sludge pumping through his veins. "Is that all the satisfaction you require?" Riker yelled at the queens, his voice raw. He staggered away from the wall, drawing the beast's attention. "Because I think your pet is getting tired." It was a bluff, but a good one. The Hulk roared and charged again. This time it didn't swipe. It tried to trample him. Riker waited until the last second. He didn't dodge left or right. He jumped. Assisted by the manic energy of the Nectar, and despite the crushing gravity, he launched himself straight up. He grabbed onto the thick fur around the creature's neck, swinging himself onto its armored back, just behind its massive skull. It was like riding an earthquake. The Hulk went berserk, bucking, spinning, and slamming its body against the arena walls to dislodge him. Riker held on with grim determination, his fingers digging into the gaps in its armor plating. He was being battered, bruised, and shaken to his core. Every impact felt like a car crash. But he held on. The human ability to pack bond was absent here. This was pure, stubborn human endurance. The refusal to let go. High Queen Venara watched, mesmerized. The human should have been dead 10 times over. His vitals were reading chaotic levels that would signify total system failure in any other species. Yet, he persisted. "He is not fighting with strength," Venara murmured. "He is fighting with sheer refusal to die. The Nectar, it has unlocked a primal drive." His hands were slick with sweat and blood. The Hulk slammed its side against the wall again, crushing Riker's leg between its armor and the concrete. He cried out, a ragged sound of pain that cut through the arena noise. He could feel the Nectar's energy waning, the crash imminent. He had seconds left before his body just shut down. He needed to end this. He needed to satisfy the court, once and for all. He saw it. a small seam in the armor plating at the base of the Hulk's skull, where the spinal column would be most vulnerable. Riker knew what he had to do. It was insane. It was suicide. It was the only way. He let go with one hand, reaching down to his belt. He pulled out his standard-issue combat knife. It looked pitifully small against the monster. He took a deep breath of the superheated air, channeling every last drop of the fading nectar energy into one final action. The Hulk reared up on its hind legs, trying to shake Riker off backward. It was the opening he needed. As the beast went vertical, gravity shifted. Riker used the momentum to scramble higher up its neck. He wrapped his legs around its throat, locking them tight, ignoring the screaming pain in his injured leg. He raised the combat knife high. The queens above watched, silent. What was he going to do with that toothpick? Riker didn't stab at the armor. He jammed his entire forearm, knife first, deep into the soft tissue of the creature's ear canal. The War Hulk let out a sound that wasn't just a roar. It was a shriek of pure, agonizing panic. It flailed wildly, crashing onto its back, pinning Riker underneath it. The impact knocked the wind out of him. For a second, darkness clawed at the edges of his vision. The weight of the massive creature was immense. But the Hulk wasn't moving. The strike had been true, severing vital nerve clusters in its brainstem. The beast was dead before it hit the ground. Riker lay trapped under tons of alien muscle and armor. The arena was dead silent, save for the sizzling of the heat vents and the fading hum of the neurodisruptor. Up in the viewing stands, the High Queens were standing. Their antennae were rigidly still. They had just watched a lone soft human, poisoned and crushed by gravity, take down their ultimate predator with a 6-inch piece of steel. Slowly, painfully, Riker began to push. He gritted his teeth, veins standing out on his forehead like cords. He pushed against the dead weight of the Hulk. His muscles, pushed far beyond their breaking point by the nectar, screamed in protest. Inch by inch, he lifted the massive carcass, just enough to wiggle free. He crawled out from under the beast, covered in dust, alien blood, and his own sweat. He tried to stand and stumbled, falling to one knee. The crash was hitting him now. The nectar was gone, leaving behind a body wrecked by exertion. But he wouldn't stay down. Not here, not in front of them. Using the dead Hulk for support, Commander Jack Riker forced himself to his feet. He swayed, gasping for air, his chest heaving raggedly. He looked up at the 50 High Queens of the Tribunal. He spat a mixture of blood and saliva onto the arena floor. "Are you satisfied?" he rasped, his voice echoing in the silent chamber. The words were a challenge, not a question. Venara looked down at the human. She looked at the dead War Hulk. She looked at the readouts showing the human was, by all rights, medically deceased from exhaustion, yet still standing. For the first time in centuries, the High Queen of the Apex Tribunal felt genuine fear. Not of his strength, but of his spirit. A species that could drink poison for breakfast and kill monsters before lunch was not a species to be trifled with. "Disable the arena effects," Venara ordered, her voice lacking its usual icy arrogance. The gravity returned to normal. The heat vented away. The neurohum ceased. Riker almost fell over from the sudden lack of pressure, but he caught himself. He stood tall, a lone warrior in a pit of carnage, waiting for the verdict. Venara stepped forward to the edge of her viewing platform. "The trial of the nectar is concluded," she announced to the court. Her multiple eyes focused intensely on Riker. The human stood when he should have fallen. He fought when he should have died. The court is satisfied. A murmur went through the other queens, the sound of agreement and relief. They didn't want to see what else this human could do if he wasn't satisfied. Riker nodded slowly. He didn't cheer. He didn't celebrate. He just endured. "Good," Riker said. his voice tight with pain, but steady as a rock. "Now, about those shipping lanes. We have business to discuss." He turned and started walking toward the exit gate, limping heavily, but moving under his own power. He didn't look back at the queens. He didn't need to. He knew he had won something more important than a trade deal today. He had won their fear. But as he reached the tunnel, the adrenaline crash finally caught up to him. The world went sideways, and Jack Riker collapsed into the darkness of unconsciousness. Riker woke up in a sterile, brightly lit medical bay. He felt like he'd been run over by a freight train, then backed over again, just to be sure. Every muscle fiber felt bruised. He tried to sit up, and groaned. A sleek, multi-limbed medical drone hovered over him, scanning him with soft blue lights. "Easy, Commander," a familiar voice said. It was Captain Miller, his second-in-command, standing by the biobed. "You've been out for 36 hours. The alien doc said your metabolism was running so hot they could have fried an egg on your chest." Riker rubbed his eyes. "Did we get the deal?" Miller grinned. "Got the deal? Jack, you scared the carapace right off those queens. Venara signed the trade agreement an hour after they scraped you off the arena floor. Humanity has full access to the Apex shipping lanes, effective immediately. No tariffs, no restrictions. They just want us to leave and never send anyone like you back here again." Riker chuckled, which turned into a coughing fit. "Good. Mission accomplished." "There's something else," Miller said, his expression turning serious. He pulled up a holographic display showing complex chemical structures. "Our medics got a sample of your blood before the alien docs flushed your system. We analyzed that nectar you drank." Riker raised an eyebrow. "Bad stuff?" "For them, yeah. It's a complex alkaloid compound derived from a rare subterranean fungus on their homeworld. To most species with copper-based blood, it's a violently neurotoxic agent, stops the heart instantly." "But not us?" Riker guessed. "Not us," Miller confirmed. "We have iron-based blood. Our digestive system, it didn't break the toxin down into poison. It broke it down into an incredibly dense, potent form of stimulant. Think of it like drinking 50 gallons of ultra-concentrated caffeine mixed with pure adrenaline, all releasing at once." Riker shook his head in disbelief. "So they tried to execute me with the universe's strongest energy drink." "Basically," Miller laughed, "they think you're a biological monster, immune to death. They don't realize our livers are just built different. It nearly killed you from the strain, Jack. But your human stubbornness held you together." Riker lay back against the pillows. It was a classic human story. They threw their worst at him, and his biology just shrugged and asked for more. "The Queen sent a message with the signed treaties," Miller added. "They said, tell your leaders that humanity is welcome in the Apex Court, provided you remain satisfied with your current borders." "They're scared we'll want more," Riker murmured. "They should be," Miller said proudly. A week later, Riker stood on the observation deck of the Earth cruiser Endurance, watching the Apex station shrink in the distance as they prepared for the jump to hyperspace. He was still sore, and he'd probably have a limp for a month, but he was whole. He thought about the arena, the heat, the gravity, the monster. He thought about the purple liquid that felt like liquid fire. He'd satisfied their court, all right. He'd satisfied them with a lesson in human tenacity. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of species that looked down on humanity. They saw a young, soft race from a quiet corner of space. They didn't see the millions of years of evolution on a death world that had forged them into the ultimate endurance predators. They didn't see that when you try to break a human, you just make them harder. The stars stretched out before him, endless and cold. There would be other trials, other queens, other warlords, other impossible odds. Humanity was just stepping onto the galactic stage, and they had just announced their arrival with a roar that shook the highest court in the sector. Riker smiled, a genuine, tired smile. He was ready for whatever came next, because no matter what the galaxy threw at them, poison, gravity, or monsters, humanity wouldn't just survive. They would endure, and God help anyone who tried to stop them. If you enjoyed this story of human grit in the face of alien arrogance, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to HFY Endurance Tales for more stories where humanity refuses to back down. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder of what we're made of. The galaxy is full of challenges, and we're just getting started.